Scarlet Muse Cosplay, and I'm an American cosplayer here with Mia Stag Journal. I got into cosplay by going to my first convention. My brother had been going to anime conventions for a while, and I really wanted to go, and when my mom finally gave me permission, I was really excited. And I noticed that everybody else that was going to this particular convention that I saw, because they all like to hang out outside, was wearing a bunch of like black and goth clothes and stuff, and they were wearing them all together. And she never really let me do that because it was just too dark. So I decided I was gonna dress up and wear all my goth stuff together and go to the con. And I was wearing like a guitar purse that she got me and everything, and then immediately when I got there was a bunch of people that were like, oh my god, Misa! And it was really cool and really exciting to have all these people acting like I was like a star and wanting my autograph and stuff. And so I just wanted to cosplay from that point on. I know now that I was actually killing myself every time I signed one of those death notes, which is pretty funny. I was not familiar with the show. I had no idea who she was. I did look it up later and was somehow accidentally dressed exactly like the character. And then I decided that I had to figure out what all other cosplays I could throw together because I just wanted to keep doing it. But yeah, I had an absolute blast at my first con, and I also loved the idea of dressing up more than once a year. Halloween was a huge thing for my family. My dad had always made his own costumes. It was my brother's birthday and my parents' anniversary, and so getting to dress up more than just once a year was super exciting for me. So when I started finding out there was other conventions, I was like, oh my gosh, there's more than one. So it's kind of funny. For the longest time, I only knew about either Anime Fest or A-Kon, and then I found out about the other, and then I was just going to those two, and then I started finding out about other conventions, and then it just kind of blew up into the conventions that I go to today. There weren't that many attendees at the con, and so I was in line to get Jason Muse's autograph, and there was like maybe 2 people ahead of me, and somebody tapped me on the back, and I turned around and it was Kevin Sorbo, and he handed me an autographed picture of him from the Conan series, and it was autographed to Red Sonja, and he said, I just wanted to show you my codpiece, and I died laughing. It was amazing. And while I'm talking to Kevin Sorbo, somebody is tapping me on the back, but of course I'm distracted because Hercules is talking to me. And I finally turn around and it's actually Jason Muse, and he's been putting stickers on my cape that say Muse Juice, and he says, you just got Muse Juiced, and runs away. And that is definitely the biggest highlight of cosplay for me, just being a recognized character that another star is impressed with, and that was just really fun. And I love Kevin Sorbo, I love Jason Muse, and just having them both like actually interact with me was really cool. So I actually made this entire cosplay in 2 days, and the reason that I was able to pull that off while I was working and everything was because I was actually taking calls and did all this yarn beading while I was at work. So I beaded all these pieces by holding the yarn up to myself and spacing out the beads and tying like little knots before and after all the beads, and copying her photo. So I did all the beading in my cubicle at work across 2 days, and then at night I sewed all the pattern pieces, and the next day attached all the beads to them. So yeah, I did all the beading while I was at work. So I got to use all day for that. And the rest of it came together pretty easily. Like, these are just bracers. It's just one piece of fabric that I wrapped around my wrist and drew where I needed to cut it for it to fit really well and snug, but be able to slide it on and off still. I pinned it, tested it. When it worked, I just cut out another one and sewed both of them. It's just one straight line. I didn't even do a lock stitch because it's fur, so you can't really see the stitching, so you can kind of cheat a little bit on time. And so in the ears, like I said, they were just 2 little circles, super easy. Hood is just 2 pieces. I sewed it together, and then I just sewed a straight piece in the front and then cut the little arc in it so that it would kind of frame my face a little bit better, because when it was straight it looked kind of weird. And then for the bra, I just attached a little button in the middle here. It's an old bra that I had retired and was getting rid of. I just spray painted it black on the front so that it wouldn't, you know, stand out a lot when I wore it. And I think her straps were black, but I just spray painted it black with fabric paint and then sewed the fur to it, and then attached my beading that I already had. And then for my Ewok, for my bottoms, the one thing that I did a little bit different was I actually had another set of ears that I made before these that were too small. Once I turned them inside out, the fur, I guess, took up more seam allowance than I realized. And since it was too small, I couldn't use them, but I decided to give myself a little Ewok tail. So I turned one of those extra ears into a little tail by sewing it on here the other direction. So you can tell like this way it's round, but if I sew it this way, it makes it kind of pop out. So it's my little Ewok tail on my butt. And then for my boots, I actually just got thrift store boots, covered them, and then sewed the little button there, and then wrapped the yarn around, but you can't really see the yarn wrap. But I was just trying to get like a similar look to what she had going on. But yeah, so that's my Ewok, other than the staff. The staff is downstairs, but I did make that as well. Bunny Vader, which is the best arrangement of the words that I could find after, you know, looking at what his name means and everything, because I couldn't decide between Darth Bunny and Bunny Vader, and then I realized that Darth Vader means Dark Father, so it just makes sense to make him Dark Bunny Father. So the reason that I thought of this was because I turn a lot of my cosplays into bunnies, because I like to do Bunny Hutch Dallas every year, and they do a lot of conventions the night before the convention starts. They'll have a big, or the first night of a con, either one, they'll have a huge gathering of people that are in cosplays that have been spliced to be bunnies. So they're all in some rendition of a bunny. And it's just called Bunny Hutch Dallas, and it's just a really fun get together, and all the guys do Hugh Hefner splices and the girls do bunny splices, and of course the guys can do bunny rabbits too. It's just there's a little bit of a mix of everything, of just bunnies and Hugh Hefner versions of all the cosplays, and it just ends up being really funny. So I decided to do Darth Vader, mostly because I had this really awesome shiny latex corset that makes me think of Darth Vader and his weird shiny outfit that he wears. And then I love this panel that I stole from a costume at Goodwill, and then I sewed these little straps of fabric to it so that I could tie it on. And then it actually lights up and activates, so that's pretty fun. And then I stole this belt from another Goodwill costume after Halloween. And then the shorts I made, but I made them for like a Catwoman thing forever ago, and it just happened to go together. And then my little tail I actually stole from my panda. Is a panda tail, but it works for my bunny rabbit. My ears were actually the same shiny latex that this corset's made out of, but I did those for Bunny Bulma. I just borrowed them from that because it worked. And then these boots were actually from my Vampirella, and I just used them for this because the same shiny black latex look that I wanted to get kind of was brought out by those. And then this was just a really awesome piece that I got from a thrift store. I am not sure what this was a part of. It says it's from Party King. I don't know. But the ends of the hands have that cool like captain glove end going on. So I just wore black gloves with this top piece, and it looked like Darth Vader's gloves and stuff. And it gave me that high collar and everything to kind of give an ominous look. And then the cape, of course. So it really just kind of pulled it all together. But again, that was just a thrift store find from years ago, and I never knew that I was going to turn it into this. But I felt like it came together pretty cool.
The one my heart has gone to mean I want to wait.
Now we're looking at the boudoir steampunk that I did on Sunday. I ended up calling it underboob steampunk. It's just what I decided to do. I don't know. I wanted to do another steampunk, and I didn't have very many pictures of me with like underboob, but the ones that I had seen I really liked, so I was like, I'm gonna do that. But anywho, the top and the shorts and then the mask and the goggles that I was wearing were actually just after Halloween sales from Spirit, and it was like 30 bucks for all of it. So it was kind of a steal just after Halloween sales. The only part that I made for this particular build was actually this belt, which I made for the custom steampunk build competition for AllCon back in like 2014, I believe. And I just used random stuff I found in our garage for it. I lost a lot of nuts because that's where my belt loop was. And so I guess it was knocking them out. And I was actually using like scrapbooking brads to hold them all on there. So it's just scrapbooking brads with Gorilla Tape over it so that the brads won't come out. Clearly, that's not fail-safe because brads came out. But if they're not in a belt loop, they stay on there. And then this is actually an old little saw blade that I actually like sewed onto there with a shoelace because I didn't have a whole lot else to work with. So, and then these are all shoelaces. And then this, I don't even know what these are. I found them in the garage. I hope that my dad didn't need them now that I think about it. I don't even know what these are. They're pieces of something. I don't know. They looked kind of like bullet cases or something to me, so I sewed those on again with a shoelace. And then the padlock, this was just a really cool old padlock. Just like the way it looked, so I sewed that on there with the end of the shoelace. And then I did a scrapbook chain thing across here with the same little brads. And then I had some extra gears left over from making my steampunk boots, and I attached those at the end here. But those are just some scrapbooking gears. So this is my great grandfather's hat. I inherited it after he passed, along with his World War II goggles. And so I actually ran a gear from one of his clocks that had busted through the front of the hat, and it holds the goggles on the hat for me because I was having trouble with the elastic coming up because his head's a little smaller than mine and this hat, I guess. And then this is just a little piece of suede that I wrapped around the hat to kind of give it a little bit more color, dimension. These are some old keys from his library that I actually just attached to the hat here. I wrapped this arrangement of eagle feathers. He was a Boy Scout leader, and so he collected a lot of like eagle feathers and arrowheads and stuff. So I just wrapped them with a little piece of scrap leather and then glued that on here. And then I used another few pieces of gears from the broken clock there, and then in the feather. And then I think I lost one up there, but it's been a while. And then I used another old light bulb from the garage that I just thought looked really antique-y and cool. And then I got an old flower and glued a rhinestone into it and kind of put that as the front piece there, but to also cover the glue that was holding in the brass gear there. So that is my first steampunk hat. So I used a lot of different random found objects. I liked this because I actually got wolf fur from brushing one of my friend's native wolves down in Waxahachie, and I shoved it into the bottle, so it's just wolf's fur in a bottle there for one of my steampunk builds. And so for this one, this is actually a piece of bronze potpourri that I thought was pretty. I glued that to the hat. I found this really cool piece at a thrift store and glued that into the middle. This is just an old necklace from my grandmother. The pearls were flaking, and so I attached it to the hat as well. And then I've got this cool little zipper flower that came on a nail polish bottle. And this came off of one of those little puka shell chokers. I don't know if you remember those days. But it's one of those little flowers that I glued on there, one of those little old school chokers. There's another one there. So this was hat number 3, and I think it was just a fun little build to go with a steampunk outfit that I was doing with one of my friends at the time. I used to be all about the steampunk. And these are some old welding goggles that I actually put my marksman medal on from ROTC to jazz it up a little bit. But yeah, so these are just old welding goggles. I just took them apart and painted the lenses. That's actually why they're loose though. I couldn't get the sealing to go in there all the way after I had taken them out and painted them and put them back in. But I don't really use them anyway, so it just looks cool like that. But yeah, so there's my steampunk hats. is our weapons and large props room. So stuff that we don't need right now that will be in the way anywhere else is in here. And mostly weapons. But this is my Valhalla guitar, which since AllCon is over, I guess I don't have to have it with me anymore, so it's out here in the weapons room. But definitely one of my favorite props. I actually have to give most of the credit for this one to Chris, who actually put in most of the work to make this while I was sewing the rest of our costumes. But I am so stoked with how that turned out, and it's our first build with Hexflex paint, and it hasn't chipped at all, and it's just amazing, and now I need to repaint all of my other foam stuff. This is my Pokey Staff. This we made for my Flareon Goddess build that I did for Fan Days. And this is super fun. It's just a foam pokey, well, not a pokeball, just a foam ball from the grass store, and then a really thin PVC pipe. The only thing is, when you get this PVC pipe, it's just really, really wobbly because it's so thin. We actually ran wooden dowels up the center of it to fill it up and to give it that sturdiness. So it's got 2 wooden dowels run up it, and then the second one actually comes out the top and goes into the pokeball to give it more stability. And then I just dented this in with my fingernail actually, and then painted it to look like a pokeball, and then just cut 2 little circles out of foam. And then Chris did these little ringlets for me. But yeah, so it's just a PVC pipe and foam. So it's pretty simple, but it also looked really cool, and I felt like really brought the Flareon out, because when people saw the Pokeball, okay, they were like, oh, she has to be Pokemon, and then they saw the diamond ears, and that kind of helped people know who I was. So that was really cool, a splice that is easier to recognize. This is my Ewok staff. I actually took a old spear piece from Spirit Halloween and wrapped it with leather, and then wound the yarn up and down it to kind of give it this cool pattern, and you know, make it look native. And then I went ahead and did that with other leather and other yarn at the top and bottom as well. And then she had a bird skull woven to hers. I could not find one last minute, so I actually ended up just grabbing a small longhorn skull at Michael's. So yeah, so it has a little longhorn on it instead, which I thought was appropriate since I'm a little Texan, so. And then I attached the feathers, of course, and then I had a string of beads coming over it like she did, but I don't know if you see here, the yarn came unwoven and all my beads fell off at AllCon, so I've got to replace it. So yay, cosplay casualties. But yeah, so the yarn came apart. I'm not real sure what I would have done differently for that, but as far as the feathers falling off the bottoms, I just probably should have used E6000 as opposed to hot glue. I just was making it really fast. And for the most part, it held together. And then last but not least, wait for this. I don't know if you guys have seen my Foo build from Magic Knight Rare that I did with my friends as a group cosplay competition build, but this is my Phoenix. His name is Wyndham, I believe, and this is him. He doesn't have his little eyes in. He has eye lights that go in there, and then there's lenses that go over him, so his eyes aren't in, so ignore his eye sockets. But this is Wyndham, and he needs some touch-ups from being in storage. But other than that, he's still big and flapping all 4 wings. And one last fun fact, with Wyndham, I could not use any of my other glues on the feathers because I was gonna paint over it, and I needed the fur to stand up and look like feathers when I sewed the feather, or when I attached the feathers to the fur. So in order to avoid glue patting the fur down or melting in the heat, I actually hand sewed 600 feathers onto Wyndham.
Holy crap.